Good morning. My name is Angela Price. I'm the Project and Policy Manager with Salt Lake City Housing and Neighborhood Development Division. We will be taking questions from the public on Facebook this morning, so please leave your comments in the Facebook feed. We have a team of staff monitoring the feed that will send the questions to us. We'd like to thank you for joining us today. We know times have been incredibly challenging for Salt Lake City residents, with many businesses laying off and furloughing staff. We want you to know that Salt Lake City is here, and we're working to provide assistance to those in need during this time of crisis. The goal of this Ask Me Anything is to inform renters, landlords, and homeowners of options and resources to assist with housing stability needs. We have a group of experts ready to answer your questions and direct you to resources. We will have each presenter introduce themselves and give a brief summary of the services their organization provides. We'll start with Tony Milner from Salt Lake City.
Hello, everyone. The program manager for Salt Lake City Housing and Neighborhood Development. And later on, I'll talk a little bit more about the different housing resources and services that the city offers to residents.
Hi, I'm Weston Clark. I'm the Director of Community Outreach for Mayor Mendenhall. My team and I work directly with the community councils, and community groups on a variety of issues for Mayor Mendenhall. We hear a lot about housing and housing concerns. Bring into discussion some of the concerns we are hearing often from the community.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Weston. I am with the state of Utah. I am the program manager for Housing and Community Development, Department of Workforce Services. And during we have through housing, we have set up a program, tenant-based rental assistance, to help those struggling to make rent payments. And then through workforce services, obviously the big one is unemployment insurance, and we have done a great job getting those people processed and getting them their.
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, I have to mute myself. I'm mute. With the Office of Regional Development for Salt County and part of the Housing and Community Development Division. We're happy to be here this morning, be part of this video presentation, and answer many of your questions that you may have. We are partners, community and government partners with Salt Lake City, and happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tara Rollins, and I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Housing Coalition, membership-based organization, and our members include anyone from a service provider all the way up to investors in affordable housing. We do a lot of advocacy on behalf of low-income people throughout the state.
Hello, this is Heather Lester. I am here representing Utah Community Action. For Utah Community Action, I am the landlord-tenant mediator. I am also, here to give some information about the many services that we do have. Obviously, adult education, nutrition, heat, weatherization, Head Start, and housing case management and rental assistance. I do have an issue with my computer as well, so I apologize for not having the video, but I am definitely here for what I can be.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Carpio. I'm with United Way of Salt Lake. I'm the 211 Director of Operations. I'm representing here Utah 211, which is a statewide service provided to everyone in collaboration with United Way of Utah County, United Way of Northern Utah, and United Way of Salt Lake. And that service is getting people connected to resources. So people that need help, or if you know someone who needs help and you don't know where to go, you can always call or contact 211. And I'll be here just informing you of the different services that we provide and the different ways you can connect with our resources.
Great, thank you guys so much. Before we get started, we'd like to thank Mayor Mendenhall and the City Council for their exceptional leadership during the COVID-19 crisis. The mayor, working in conjunction with Housing and Neighborhood Development, has identified over $9.5 million in funding to address housing stability needs in Salt Lake City. These funds will be available to our community over the coming months. The city will work in tandem with our community partners that have successful existing programs to ensure rapid deployment of the funds to the city's most vulnerable and eligible residents. Additionally, just this week, the City Council finalized recommendations for housing and urban development funding that has been allocated to community partners to provide services to Salt Lake City residents starting July 1st. We would also like to thank the Utah Legislature and Governor Herbert for allocating $20 million of the state's CARES federal funding assistance to rental assistance here in Utah. These funds will be administered through the Department of Workforce Services and will be available starting August 1st. Please keep in mind to contact 211 to access those services in August. With that, let's get started with the live chat. Please post your questions in the live feed box, and please note that we will not be able to answer specific individual questions. If you have a question regarding your specific situation, we encourage you to call 211 for assistance or to reach out to the organization that you have been working with. The first question we have for the panelists is, what is the 3-day pay or quit? I'm going to send this to Heather Lester and Tara Rollins. Heather, do you want to go ahead and start on that one?
I definitely can. I don't know if Tara wants to pitch in first. Okay. Basically, what is it is kind of a vague question. Basically, a pay or vacate notice is when rents are due, the time limit for the grace period is expired, and they are given a notice to basically pay the rent at the time. The pay or vacate notice will show the rents that were due that are accruing through the date of the notice, also including generally a late fee if it's assessed through the lease, and potentially a service fee. But within that 3-day notice period, they're able to pay that rent to the landlord, and then obviously if they cannot do that or make arrangements to do the payment, then they have the option to vacate the unit and then go forward with that. Did you want to, I mean, as far as adding anything else, the main thing is if you're able to pay and you are able to work out arrangements, the landlord does not have to take partial payments at that point. Any prior arrangements that maybe came before the notice is given does go into play as far as when rents or monies were exchanged. But as far as the notice period, at the end of that 3-day pay or vacate time frame, it does go into a term and a period of time called unlawful detainer. An unlawful detainer is when the notice expires and then it moves forward through the eviction process. That's how pay or vacates work.
Heather, can you talk a little bit about your experience of people who may receive a 3-day notice?
Yes. So
the emotional part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say which part. So it is very trying, and 3 days. 3 days is extremely tough. There is some different things that are coming in, some questions that are being done as far as 3-day pay or vacate for calendar days versus business days. Tara could definitely answer to that and when that change may take effect. But operating on the assumption of where it's at right at this day, it is 3 days that are calendar, which does include weekends. So the emotional part of things that come with a pay or vacate notice or any eviction notice at that measure, there is 3 days. The first day is when you panic. Even if you knew it was coming, you still freeze. So there's the tenant freeze. It's a psychological process that you go through. So the first day you freeze. Second day, every training that I give, I always talk about second day being business day. Business day is when you call people, you call agencies, you call any place that potentially could assist you with partial rent, monies, even calling your landlord on that second day once you get past the initial shock. The third day is the psychological trauma when it actually you realize that maybe things can't be done. Do I have to vacate? And basically, you know, trying to figure out your situation. So it is a really stressful time period with all of those different things coming day over day. My advice, obviously, outside of even pandemic time or any crisis, eviction is a crisis on its own. And so calling and making the first day, the business day, and calling 211, talking to resources, talking to your landlord, making action happen on that first day, even knowing that it was coming, it will definitely save you some time and help you to access the things that are out there.
I think another thing that could happen is you come home, it's 10 o'clock at night, and you get this notice on the door, and you want to be proactive, and 211 may not be available, but you can always go on self-help court, and that's a great resource to kind of understand what the process of eviction is, and get some really good information, so you can start helping yourself at that point. But anyone knows if you're not paying your rent, you really want to avoid getting that 3-day notice. And so start talking to your landlord as soon as you know that you cannot pay. And so, Heather works with landlords and tenants all the time on making arrangements to pay. And so maybe, Heather, if you want to go into some of that. Great. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Angela. Do we want to go there now, or do we have another question?
Yeah. So the next question is related to what do you do if you are being evicted? So I think you guys could probably, this would go back to Tara and Heather, if you guys want to just elaborate a little bit more on kind of that process in coordination with the 3-day pay or vacate.
Yeah, it definitely kind of, both of those questions, Tara's and the question from the stream, what do you do when you're being evicted? It does depend on the type of eviction notice. We definitely are always talking about pay or vacates. There's a lot of things that may go into pay or vacates that's not specifically money related, or it's caused because of money related issues. So again, we're going to function on the pay or vacate notice right now, unless somebody else specifies that. Tara did mention calling 211. Even if you can't call 211 and you are trying to find resources in your area, even if it's outside of Salt Lake County, 211 has a website. I do find that extremely helpful, especially if you have many different issues and you can kind of find different resources for your many needs. So always remember that as far as not even just calling 211. She did mention the Utah Courts website. It's utcourts.gov. Aside from conversations and documenting everything that you're working with your landlord, the Utah Court website is really, it basically says it's self-help. It does let you know the timeframes, it does let you know the laws, it does have actually, the self-help center does have documents that you can actually fill out. You do not have to go law school 101 within 25 minutes to try and figure out your situation. Again, the notice is the precursor to any court filings. So again, catching it before it's filed is upstream, but even more upstream is catching and having negotiations before you even receive the pay or vacate notice. A lot of places, a lot of landlords, private, big, small, they do have to give a notice when rents expire. So basically, for example, the 1st it's due, or the 3rd it's due, the grace period expires on the 5th. Most policies for most places, landlords in general, have to give this notice according to like the 6th of the month. So even if they have arrangements in place, sometimes these notices are given out regardless. So just knowing that you've had communication prior to the notice, negotiations are ongoing throughout the notice, and then just avoiding that freeze. So that's how you avoid an eviction, is just document, mainly communicate, start some sort of conversation. Anybody that calls me, anybody that comes through by any fashion to mediation, to the self-help center, they're going to ask what conversations have been done or what communications have occurred between the landlord and the tenant prior to this. A lot of times people freeze and haven't done anything. It does make it difficult. Main thing is communicate, document communications, Sometimes it's done through portals. Sometimes it's done through text messages, emails, face-to-face. Even face-to-face conversations need a follow-up email to show that things are being discussed. Even if it's not the best case scenario and everybody wins, communications still need to be documented. That's one of the best ways you can avoid eviction, and just understanding what options you have and coming to the table being able to negotiate and giving your options along with listening to theirs.
Great, thank you. Tara, do you have anything to add to that? Perfect. We are going to take a question from Chris on Facebook. Chris is asking, what happens when the eviction moratorium ends? Will there be some sort of grace period for renters? I'll take the last part and then I'll probably shoot this back to, sorry, Tara and Heather are kind of dominating this conversation here, but they are the experts in this area. There currently is not a grace period for renters that's been announced, which is why we're hosting this AMA today, to get resources out to the community so you guys can start working with your landlords, with your and accessing services. So with that, I will have Heather or Tara chime in on the eviction moratorium.
I don't know, we drawing straws, Tara. And I'm echoing exactly what Angela said. There's not an extension at this time for that. The best dialogue that I've been able to have is just showing that maybe something between the April 1st deadline and May 15th has occurred. There may have been some agreements worked out for April. There may need to be further agreements or needs to work out for May. But the main thing, and it's sometimes harsh because there's a lot of confusion between the state of Utah Governor Herbert's order and then the federal moratorium, the federal CARES Act moratorium. So there's different timeframes and understanding the differences between the two. The main thing is the rent doesn't go away, and that's the harsh reality. It's not a forgiveness. It's not a forbearance. It's basically these rents are due. What I am finding a lot of success with, and landlords are very much coming to the table, small, big, or indifferent. Late fees are negotiable. There's a lot of other fees that are negotiable, things you can put aside to pay as you go, but it does make good sense to keep your unit, to stay stably housed, to make sure that you understand that the rents aren't being forgiven, but they have negotiable options. So on the 15th, it does expire. The governor's order does expire. That does fall on a Friday. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to be part of this is to show that it is on a Friday, regardless of whether you've paid half, 3/4, a couple $100, whatever it looks like, that does fall on a Friday. And then obviously the next business day would be the 18th, which is Monday. So doing what you can prior to the 15th is always the best option. I refer and I tell that to anyone that I work with or anybody that I'm able to talk with in this kind of a forum. That is a Friday. The 16th is a Saturday. Understanding access to banks, access to landlords, have that communication early, have that communication documented, and have a plan and action before it even expires, if at all possible. I don't know if Tara wants to add anything to that. I think she's muted.
Sorry. Hopefully by then we will have some, housing assistance available. And so people should be dialing 211 to find out what their options are. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of calls coming in next week for that. And my suggestion is if you've applied, some people applied right away, we continue to lose jobs. And so if you just lost your job just recently, then you're just applying for benefits. And so you really want to make sure that you're working with a housing counselor at a community action program that can help you communicate with your landlord to say, I have benefits, I've applied, they're just not here. And so I think that is really important to not lose sight of when May 15th comes.
And I just wanted to add one thing real quick if I could. Just on the back end of that, I mean, community action programs, there's a lot of different places that have assistance. 211 is the best resource to figure out your needs and where to go for that. Just speaking specifically about UCA, we obviously provide holistic case management, seeking emergency rental assistance. We're working really heavily with the city, the county, and the state, and receiving funding through the CARES Act. So you just please reach out, get that process in place if you're able to get any kind of rental assistance. That does help go a long way with negotiating with your landlord. If they know that there's a plan, whether it's your monies, other CARES Act money, case management funds, any kind of interceptor to your crisis, it will go a long way in negotiating. So just know that, Utah Community Action is definitely front lines, 900 plus calls a month for emergency rental assistance. So we're definitely doing it. Just make sure you reach out. Any kind of plan is better than nothing.
Great, thank you. Really, really great points there. We now are going to go to a question. I'm going to have Tony Milner from the city, Mike Gallegos from the county, and Jess from the state all speak to how you access rental assistance programs. And then let's finish it off with Sandra from 211 to talk about those services.
Sure, I'll go first. Thanks, Angela. So at Salt Lake City in the Housing and Neighborhood Development Office, we're the ones who administer the community grants, primarily our federal community development grants. We get this through HUD, and then annually we put it out through a competitive application process that a resident advisory board reviews, as well as the mayor and the council, and these cover a range of assistance programs for our community, including housing stability. Another funding source we also administer is Funding Our Future. This was a sales tax increase put in place a few years ago by the residents of Salt Lake, and it's meant to address critical needs in the city, including streets, transportation, safety, and housing. Basically, I want to highlight some of the programs that we currently have through those different funding sources. We have a rapid rehousing program, moving people out of homelessness into housing with the Road Home. That's just one. We have others, but that's a great program that I want to highlight. We have a great partnership with Utah Community Action, which is with Heather's representing, both for homeless prevention services, keeping people in their homes so they don't get evicted, as well as their amazing, amazing tenant landlord mediation services. Another one is the Housing Authority for Salt Lake City with their deposit assistance, and another one which is with the Corporation for or CDCU payment assistance. So all of these outcomes, all these activities can be found on our online hand, both in our consolidated plan as well as our annual action plan. All of this too is also governed by our plan that the city operates under, which is really spelled out the many different ways that the city is engaged in developing and maintaining affordable housing. Another thing I want to mention really quickly too is we are receiving new HUD money, new community development funds through the CARES Act, and that's going to be directly related to COVID response and recovery. So we want to make sure that it's great that we're figuring out how to utilize these funds. We're sending it to the mayor, to the council, giving them their ideas, their options, and how this can best be utilized for the residents of the city during this many-month recovery time that we're experiencing right now for recovery. But those funds will be set aside and dedicated for, again, low-income, vulnerable, underserved areas and populations of our community. The best way to access these funds, though, I just really have to recommend is 211. 211 has the updated information about all these different programs that we. Because again, we don't run on this out of our office. We are just the grantor that then subgrants to some amazing, dedicated, fantastic nonprofit subgrant. Reach out to them to see about eligibility requirements. Availability is through 211.
Like what Tony had to say, I don't want to repeat what Tony shared with you because we pretty much do the same thing with Salt Lake County. We do not run any of these programs. We have community partners that develop, create, and run these programs, and we're supportive of that effort by providing funding and partnering with them to make sure that we're reaching out and serving those individuals in our community that need the most help. I will mention that as we're waiting for the COVID dollars, the CARES Act funding dollars to come, there is a process in trying for the federal government to get these dollars out to the states and local governments. That is a process, and we're all in that process right now to plan and determine how those dollars will best be utilized for the impact of COVID-19. As such, and as we're waiting for the rental assistance dollars to become available, I know that Salt Lake County and the state of Utah has cobbled together some funding, redirected some funding now to help bridge the time frame when the state $20 million rental assistance program comes about, but that's not until August 1st. So hopefully that could move up the time frame. But in the meantime, we have put together some initial dollars to help bridge that need out there. And we've contracted with the Utah Community Action Program that's been mentioned already, and with the Housing Connect, that is a housing authority that covers the Salt Lake County area. And we'll be able to provide that contact information, hopefully as part of this chat box. If not, we'll follow up and provide the documentation or the contact information. But of course, you could always reach out to 211. Maybe that should be the first call you make, because they could also address some of the other needs that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks. In regards to the state of Utah, we have initially we set aside $1 million to help those affected by COVID-19 with the tenant-based rental assistance program. Similar to what Mike and Tony said, we will not be administering the program. It'll be administered by, there will be 9 agencies across the state of Utah, many of which will be Association of Governments to help those in rural Utah. And the tenant-based rental assistance program that we're funding is specifically for those that are not eligible for unemployment insurance. That's our target market. They've got to be below 60% AMI, but this program is geared towards those who are have fallen through the cracks of unemployment insurance. But like I said, the agencies will be running the programs. We're working on, because this is a new program and we've never done anything like this, we have to make sure that we're following all the rules. I'm sure all the agencies are doing the same thing. But once we get this up and running, which should be, we're hoping next week, the money can go to the agencies and they can start working. And these agencies as well will be receiving other funds through the CARES Act. And some of the funding will be similar to rental assistance, what we're doing. But yeah, that's the rental assistance program that the state has going right now. And all that information will be, we can post all the contact information. Like Mike said, call 211 first, and we can put all the contact information kind of in a central location.
Jess, do you think it's fair to say that we're learning as we move forward, and that we're starting off with these particular rules and that may be falling through the crack, that we'll be able to lighten up or change some of the rules for this funding?
So yeah, this is definitely evolving. The money that we're using is from HUD, so it's federal dollars. And so there are some rules. HUD has issued a lot of waivers they understand that everybody's in a crisis right now, and that we just don't have time to follow the rules strictly like before. And so they have waived a lot of the rules to make this really, to make it less burdensome on us. So yeah, we can change some rules. We can maybe help those that are not specifically outlined in what we're looking at now. However, with unemployment insurance, those that are falling through the cracks, like I said, that's the target market.
Yeah.
And because the bonus of unemployment insurance, there's a lot of people who are getting more than what they made. And unemployment insurance is for paying rent for them. So those that are not receiving that, it's important for them to receive help as well.
Just one more question. So is the state helping undocumented people with rental?
Yep. Yes. There's nothing in our program right now that says we cannot help undocumented workers.
Tara, I will mention the federal HUD dollars that Jess is talking about does not require citizen documentation. And so, yes, we could serve undocumented workers. And it also leads to the growing need of assistance that people may fall through the cracks. The biggest impact are those that have worked in the service industry and are probably have been less paid than other types of jobs in the community. So I would say that's probably one of our vulnerable population. People who've worked in the service industry, whether it be with restaurants, hotels, anything to do with, let's say, the convention business, tourism business, as well as other expanded parts of the service industry.
Great, thank you guys. Sandra, before we go to you, I just want to highlight that, as you've seen here, we have the city, the county, and the state all pulling resources together to our community partners who have a track record of running successful programs. They're able to deploy these resources quickly. With that, I would like to have Sandra, can you talk a little bit about, as we've been saying here, we're directing everybody to contact 211. Can you talk a little bit about 211 and what that experience is like for somebody to call in to that line and what they can expect?
Yes, definitely. So with 211, there's different ways that you can connect with 211. You can call. We do take phone calls 24/7, 365 days of the year. So that's a way to do that. You can do that by dialing 211 from your phone, or if you're not able to do the short dial, you can also call 1-888-826-9790. You can text into, that is not 24/7, but you can text 898-211, and we have a chat feature and an email feature. You can access that if you go to our website, which is 211utah.org. And you can also search for your own resources in our website, and you can download an app. We also have a 211 Utah app where you can access resources. And the way that it is, if you decide to call in, which is a very common and popular way to access 211, you'll be connected with an information specialist. We do offer services in Spanish and English, and we also use a language line that offers services in over 200 languages. So if you're not English speaker and you need services in a different language, we are able to accommodate that. The information specialist will go through a series of questions. What they're trying to do is understand your situation, have a better understanding of what would be the best resources available to you, and also try to kind of work with you in addressing your needs, because ultimately you're the one who's going to decide what's your priority, right? And then we get you connected to the different resources. So that could be, rent payment assistance, or some mediation with your landlord. Sometimes it's a shelter. So it just depends. We do offer a a variety of resource information. We have over, almost 3,000 services listed in our database. Sorry, I said that wrong. We have almost 3,000 providers listed in our database that are offering almost 9,000 services. So it's a very extensive database. It's constantly being updated. Currently, right now, we're trying to work extra hard to make sure that any updates that are happening because of COVID-19, that we're keeping up with that. And so you can always try to communicate with us, and we'll do our best to make sure that you get connected to the resources. Another thing too that was mentioned is that sometimes people will call us in because they need help with rent, and when with those conversations, that there's additional needs there. So there might be a need for help with food or help with utilities, and so we try to address those too and get you connected to those resources. So I want to echo what everybody said several times. You know, if you think you need help, and even if you're not quite sure where you need the help, connect with 211, and we'll do our best to kind of help you through the process.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandra, and for the work that you guys are doing at United Way and 211. Our next question is resources available to landlords. And I'm going to talk about this one. So Mayor Mendenhall, back in mid-April, signed her 7th emergency proclamation, which allowed for a landlord to defer their business license fee for 1 year if they commit to not evicting their tenants for non-payment of rent during the declared state of emergency and 3 months following that declaration. What you need to do if you're a landlord and would like to qualify for that program, we will have an FAQ sheet up on slc.gov and also on slc.gov/hand that provides more information about this. But essentially, you need to provide a documentation that's a written lease between the landlord and tenant for real property located within Salt Lake City boundaries, dated prior to the date of the mayor's 7th proclamation. Additionally, a signed document between the landlord and tenant stating that the landlord will not evict that tenant due to the non-payment of rent during the hardship period. If you would like more information on this, again, you can visit the city's website, or you can email landlord/tenant@slcgov.com or call 801-535-7721. Additionally, the Utah Apartment Association website has some resources for landlords that you can access, which is uaahq.org. The Federal CARES Act provided some protections for landlords, including mortgage forbearance. If you would like to access those resources, we encourage you to look at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Federal Housing Finance Agency website to understand what those resources are for you. With that, do any of the panelists have anything else they would like to add on the landlord resource piece?
This is more of a question. How would a tenant know that the landlord is covered by the federal forbearance? You want to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. Thank you. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition has put together a database. The link to that database is on the FAQ sheet that we've put together for the city that shows those federally backed units. A caveat to that is it only shows units that are 4 units or greater. So if you are living in a duplex or you're renting a single family home, those units may not be on there. And also that list is not necessarily comprehensive. If you're concerned or want to know if your rental unit is backed by these federal protections, both for forbearance and eviction moratorium, please contact your landlord and get that information directly from them.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on the landlord. So for the state of Utah, those project developers or owners of projects that received funding from the Olin Walker Housing Loan Fund. So we've set up a program to where those with that received our money can request a deferral, and but obviously, I mean, it's for those who received our money, so their payment would be deferred. There's some certain guidelines, but if any developer or owner of a project that received some funding from us, please reach out to us and we can guide you through the application process of receiving a loan deferral. But again, that's strictly for the Olin Walker Housing Loan Fund payment. That doesn't include anybody else's payment.
Thank you for that, Jess. Just to kind of piggyback on that same question, are there resources available for homeowners? Again, the Federal CARES Act protects those Fannie, Freddie, and FHFA loans. So we encourage you to contact your lender immediately if you are unable to pay your mortgage. Start those conversations with your lender so that you have a plan of action in place. Document those conversations and follow through with your lender. We will be rolling out many services over the coming months this summer. We encourage you to contact 211 if you are unable to pay your mortgage and see if there are services available for that. We also have many of our partners here in Utah provide housing counseling services that are available to you. And I will have Tara and Heather speak to those services, and anybody else if you'd like to chime in as well.
So this is Tara, and I would encourage anybody who's having mortgage issues to reach out to one of the counseling agencies, and they are listed on the HUD website. So if you just Google it, but in Salt Lake City right now, the people that I would reach out to is Community Action Program. You can reach out to NeighborWorks Salt Lake, also the Extension within the county. They all do counseling. There's also counseling that is being done online. And so one of the things that I also would like to add is if you are having trouble with your mortgage and your mortgage, they're not working with you, please reach out. You can reach out to myself, Tara Rollins at Utah Housing. You can look on our website, but also reach out to your elected officials, and especially at the state. And so I would point out, if you are in Salt Lake, City, I really would, or Salt Lake County, reach out to the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate, because they are fully active in the task force COVID-19, and they really need to hear what's happening on the ground, whether it is rental or mortgage. And so one of the things that I have advocated for on a state level is to put $1 million into creating a coalition around foreclosure counseling. And so that has been well received by the group. And so I hope, moving forward, we'll be able to, build a coalition statewide to help people so they don't lose their home.
I may add that there is a statewide shortage of housing counselors, and that's why that committee is making or considering a request. And I would agree with Tara that we need to do whatever we can to help support that. It goes back to the issue we had back in the 2008 mortgage crisis, where mortgage counseling is very effective in saving a mortgage and people's credit. And another thing what people need to understand too is that paying your rent for those that rent, that is critical. You got to do what you can to make sure you make the rent payment, because that impacts your credit as well and future renting possibilities.
So I'd like to chime in for the state. We have a single family rehabilitation and reconstruction program that is run in rural Utah. And again, like the multifamily, if any of those people have been affected by COVID-19, we are deferring loans on a temporary basis, and working with each of those families. But again, it's those that have a loan with us and in rural Utah. But again, we're going to be putting this information up on our website and along with everything else. But I just wanted to let people know about that as well.
This is Heather Lester. I just wanted to chime in too. Even as far as outside of mortgage specific counseling, when it comes down to tenants, there's two aspects that I really pride myself on, is obviously mediation, the neutral basis of negotiating and assisting to stay housed. But the second part of it that's just as important is the tenant education. And it's not just, hey, what are my tenant rights? But it's actually understanding your lease, understanding how to communicate, understanding what terms of your lease, how to enter into a legal binding document the right way. So there's a lot of things that go into tenant education that are outside of mediation, but include mediation. So I think it helps, obviously, mortgage holders. I think it helps landlords just to have that same information and same dialogue. So there's a lot of trainings going on. With that, we're trying to get it virtual now, so it's more functional, but generally speaking, when we're not in lockdown, there's a lot of basics that help just to understand the legal contract itself. So there's those resources as well. And I'm hoping, especially with learning what all of the other things are, maybe there's some collaboration there too, that we can help each other to just get the understanding. So thanks.
Thanks, Heather. Do you want to speak a little bit about the case management program at Utah Community Action and the services that your case managers provide?
Yes.
Can I butt in first? This is Tara. I just want to put a plug in for our toolkit, and Heather can speak to the toolkit as well. That's what she was referring to, is the education tool. We have it in English and Spanish, and we just updated to our 4th edition. So I would encourage everyone to pin this to their website, because it's extremely helpful.
Yes, I love the toolkit. I'm definitely overly proud of the revisions and just everything that it does just to help people get in the right track. So the question was to talk to the case management, the Utah Community Action Case Management Services. Yes?
That's correct, yes.
So basically, UCA provides holistic case management for clients basically seeking rental assistance, emergency rental assistance, temporary rental assistance, or deposit assistance. So the goal is to connect the clients internally and to community resources. So the whole holistic process basically just goes over stabilizing and helping those clients to reach self-sufficiency. So again, with the city, the state, the county funding, the different things that we're able to pull in, there's a lot of different grant pools, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's a lot of different criteria. There's some city grants that, and Tony kind of mentioned those earlier, just of the different things we're able to do with different AMI income categories. So the case managers obviously work with them. They go within each parameter of the grant. Within most of the grants, there are debt education programs, obviously tenant toolkit, landlord tenant mediation can be utilized as well through that. But the case managers usually work with them anywhere up to, it's never as short as 30 days, but it can go upwards of like 90 days. It just depends on the grant, the need, and the whole plan is just to get those clients and those tenants to self-sufficiency. There's a really impactful relationship that begins as well with the landlords, because the landlords and the case managers work pretty heavily. And I mean, maybe I'm partial, but truly we have the best case managers in the galaxy. These people are absolutely the best of the best. So they care, they're dedicated, and our tenants really, I say our tenants, the tenants that we work with are they're getting served by the best. So anyway, again, I'm a little partial, but I just work with this team so heavily, and getting those clients and having the success stories to that self-sufficiency, it really is a relationship, city, state, and county as a whole. So I hope that, I don't know if you have any other questions regarding case management, but that's the process and the purpose.
Great, thank you so much, Heather. With that, I'd like to take a question to Weston Clark. Mayor Mendenhall has really shown exceptional leadership through this COVID-19, putting together excellent resources for our residents here in Salt Lake. Weston, can you speak a little bit about some of the resources available to our residents and the work that you do in the mayor's office, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I know that me, like many people in the community, are really inundated by a lot of information, a lot of resources, not knowing where to go. We're dealing with a lot of disparity between those who have connectivity to digital resources, to the internet, the digital divide, language barriers, a lot of things that are making it difficult for people to get all the information that they need. I know that Mayor Mendenhall is incredibly grateful for all the work that the city employees, county and the state have been doing, including community organizations, to address so many of these concerns and a lot of the concerns around housing and housing insecurity. We as a team have tried to collect a lot of these resources and try to put them in one place. If you go to the slc.gov/mayor, you can find our COVID page, which is the place where we've tried to collect a lot of these resources, or potentially send you to other places where resources are collected, like our housing division. There are resources there in multiple languages, and we would love any organizations that would like more information or have the ability to help us get those messages out to different communities, to let us know how we might be able to get those messages out. There's a lot going on. Information changes quickly, and we're just trying to get as much information in the hands of the people that need it as quickly as we can. But it's always a task, and there's a lot of people that get left out, and so we're trying to minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you, Weston. Can you quickly speak to community councils and what their role is right now in the stay-at-home era that we have?
Sure. So a lot of people may not know, but the city is divided up into over 20 community councils, which are independent organizations, nonprofit organizations that have their own elections and their leadership. They're great organizations, and they are your neighborhood leaders. They are your neighbors, and they are well connected into the city as well, and know who to talk to and how to get information if they need it. And I would encourage anybody to reach out to their neighbors. And in fact, early on in this pandemic, we encouraged people to be supportive of their neighbors, and I think that continues even as things change, to check on your neighbors, make sure they're doing okay. Think about who in your neighborhood or in your apartment building who might be more vulnerable in a situation like this, and at least try to help them get connected to the services that we're talking about today and through other organizations. We've touted 211 a lot on this call, and I do it regularly because 211 is a great resource for just about anything that you might need in a situation like this, at least getting you connected with the organizations that can. But the community councils are a great way to just reach out to your neighbors and have them help you out. And I know all of these community council members and chairs personally, and they're all great people and would never hesitate to support their neighbors. You can give us a call and we can connect you with those community council chairs, or you can go to our website, same place to the mayor's website, and find out who your community council leadership is.
Great, thank you so much, Weston. We're about out of time here. We've been seeing in the news various different questions from renters on what do I do with my stimulus check? Am I required to give that to my landlord? No, you are not required to give your stimulus check to your landlord. However, we do encourage you to communicate with your landlord often about your ability to pay rent and put a plan of action in place. With that being said, do we have any final quick remarks from any of the folks here, or else I will end with Salt Lake City's final remarks?
So this is Jess again with the state of Utah. just quickly, for anybody applying for unemployment insurance, please go to jobs.utah.gov and you can do everything you need to do through our website. And that's just, I know that's a huge concern for everybody, but please go to the website and you can complete everything you need to do on there. Thank you.
I just want to add, Angela, that our elected officials, I'm going to say Mayor Wilson, Mayor Mendenhall, and the governor are collaborating almost on a daily basis on the issues of COVID-19. And they're doing a great job in the leadership and trying to address the issues and focusing on the most vulnerable in our communities. And there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that we don't see and the media doesn't cover. They are taking a lot of time in those command centers, emergency command centers, and trying to address all the issues in the county to deal with health and resources. So need to thank them for that as well too. Also with 211, housing is probably their number one call with regards to people looking for resources. Number two is food, access to food. And that's another one that also needs to be addressed. And I think we're all trying to address that as part of our work and working with housing because it's an issue in our community as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. That's a really great point. And we are certainly so fortunate here in Utah to have just a really great leaders at the city, county, and state level. We have an excellent group of community partners. We all work collaboratively, and we are all working night and day to get resources out to our communities. We'd like to thank you for participating in our AMA today. We want to encourage you to be proactive rather than reactive. Communicate with your landlord or lender early and often. Document your conversation and plan of action, and cooperate with one another. Contact 211 for more information on assistance programs. Salt Lake City has put together an FAQ sheet that will be up on our website today. It is in both English and Spanish. Again, that website is slcgov.com or slcgov.com/hand. Again, thank you so much. Please remember to wash your hands, wear your mask, and protect the hive. Have a great day.